Whittward Carver, the Quantum Canine Caper. Alright, buckle up because this tale is about to get weirder than a schizophrenic squirrel on a pogo stick. So, picture this. Paradox Public Library. It's not your average book nook. It's more like the Bermuda Triangle of literature. And at the helm of this literary loony bin is Dr. Felix Heisenberg, a man with more brain cells than a Mensa meeting and the patience of a saint on Valium. In walks this bloke, looking like he's been on the losing end of a wrestling match with a tornado. His lab coat is a Jackson Pollock painting of cat hair and dog drool, and his hair is doing its best impression of a lightning strike victim. He's vibrating with excitement like a vibrator in a power socket. "Excuse me," he says, his voice quivering like a jelly in a jacuzzi. "I'm looking for a very specific book. It's about Pavlov's dog and Schrodinger's cat." Heisenberg raises an eyebrow so high it nearly takes off like a rocket. "That's quite an unusual request. Let me think." He taps his chin thoughtfully. "It rings a bell, but I'm not sure if it's there or not." The patron's eyes light up like a Christmas tree on crack. "Aha! So, you do have it." "Well, not exactly," Heisenberg replies, his voice drier than a desert in a drought. "You see, the book's existence is rather like Schrodinger's cat itself. Until we observe it on the shelf, it both exists and doesn't exist simultaneously." The patron nods so vigorously he looks like a bobblehead on a bumpy road. Yes, of course, but surely we can narrow down its location." Heisenberg sighs like a man who's just realized he's out of whiskey. "I suppose we could try, but I must warn you, the more precisely we determine its position, the less we'll know about its velocity. It's a bit of a quantum conundrum." Undeterred, the patron follows Heisenberg into the labyrinthine stacks. As they search, the librarian can't help but notice the man's peculiar behavior. Every time they turn a corner, the patron starts salivating like a dog eyeing a steak. "I say," Heisenberg remarks, his brow furrowing like a freshly ploughed field. "You seem to have quite the conditioned response to turning corners. Might I ask why?" The man grins sheepishly, looking about as innocent as a fox in a henhouse. "Ah, yes. You see, I've been conducting my own experiments. Every time I turn a corner in my lab, I give my test subjects a treat. I suppose I've inadvertently conditioned myself as well." As they delve deeper into the library, the shelves start stretching and distorting like a funhouse mirror. Books on quantum mechanics blur into tomes on animal behavior. Heisenberg begins to feel as disoriented as a drunken sailor on a spinning ship. "I must say," he mutters, his voice as shaky as a leaf in a hurricane, "the more we search for this book, the less certain I am of where we are or where we're going." The patron chuckles like a hyena on helium. "Isn't that always the way? The more we know, the more we realize how little we actually understand." Suddenly they stumble upon a sight that would make Alice in Wonderland feel right at home. A box sits on a shelf with a label that reads, "Schrodinger's library book, both overdue and on time until observed." Heisenberg and the patron exchange glances, their eyes wide as saucers. "Should we open it?" the librarian asks, his voice barely above a whisper. The patron shrugs, like a man who's just realized he's lost his keys. "If we do, we'll collapse the wave function. The book will either be there or not. But if we don't open it, it can remain in a state of infinite possibility." They stand there for a moment, contemplating the nature of reality and library late fees like a couple of philosophers on acid. Finally, Heisenberg clears his throat, sounding like a car trying to start on a cold morning. "Well, I suppose we should." But before he can finish, a cat darts out from behind the shelf, followed closely by a dog. The animals charge past, knocking the box off the shelf. It falls to the floor, opening on impact like a parachute deploying. Inside is a book titled Quantum Pets: The Entangled Tales of Pavlov's Dog and Schrodinger's Cat. The patron lets out a whoop of joy, sounding like a cowboy at a rodeo. Meanwhile, Heisenberg simply stares in disbelief, looking about as shocked as a priest in a strip club. "Well," the librarian says, finally, his voice as flat as a pancake, "I suppose that answers that. The book both existed and didn't exist until this very moment. And now that we've observed it, who knows what other possibilities we've eliminated." The patron carefully picks up the book, cradling it like a precious artifact. Indeed, but think of the possibilities we've created by finding it. The experiments I can conduct, the theories I can test. As they make their way back to the front desk to check out the book, Heisenberg can't help but smile like a man who's just found a £50 note on the street. It had been a most unusual day, but then again, in a library where quantum physics and behavioral psychology collided, what else could one expect? As the patron leaves, book in hand and a spring in his step, Heisenberg calls out, "Don't forget. It's due back in 2 weeks." Probably. The patron turns and grins like the Cheshire Cat. Or is it? I suppose we won't know until we observe the due date. With that, he disappears into the sunny afternoon, leaving Heisenberg to ponder the mysteries of the universe, the complexities of animal behavior, and the ever-perplexing nature of library cataloguing systems. And if that's not a mind-bending tale, I don't know what is. Cheers.